Coming up in today's newscast, Eurovision winner Netta Barzilai finally meets with the Israeli Prime Minister. The Israeli army carries out airstrikes against Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip, and Israeli researchers make a major breakthrough in treating cancer. All right, we're going to start our show out today with some cheer. Now that Israeli Eurovision winner Netta Barzilai is back in Israel, she's officially had a visit with the Israeli Prime Minister. And let's just say the two took the time to discuss, or should we say perform, some very important matters. Take a look.
גם מוכשרת, גם מתוקה, גם הביאה לנו כבוד. מדהימה. והביאה לנו את האירוויזיון.
ומלאה כריזמות וכישרונות בצורה בלתי רגילה. אני גאה בך. יודעת שאת ילדה בתקופה רבה. וואי, איזה מתוקה.
גאווה גדולה. הייתי מחכה את אבו שלך בשבילך, אבל אתה תן לי זמן.
אנחנו רוצים לצרף אותך אחרי שראינו אותך. אנחנו רוצים לצרף אותך לצרף.
אני רוצה הפקה של שיר משותף של שניהם עכשיו.
תודה רבה.
אני שמחה שאתה מייצג את הילדה המקסימה הזאת.
מירה היא הבוסית.
נכנס לכולנו ללבבות, אבל באמת. את פשוט מקסימה ברמות שקשה לתאר.
צצות לגרון.
משהו.
וואו. תודה רבה. איזה מושרת, איזה
ווינרית אמיתית.
All right, well, it's clear that Netta certainly knows how to get everyone dancing. Well, moving on to some harder news, Israel has just carried out a series of airstrikes on Hamas terror targets, all in response to machine gun fire that actually struck several homes in a southern Israeli city. The houses in Sderot were hit with bullets, causing damage, but luckily no injuries. According to the city's municipality, the gunfire was part of 3 cross-border exchanges between the IDF and Hamas. The shots were apparently aimed at an army aircraft that had been flying overhead, but struck the homes as they fell back down to earth. Earlier in the day, shots were also fired at Israeli soldiers stationed on the border with Gaza. Israeli warplanes have now targeted several Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip, including a Hamas military base and a weapons factory. The IDF has apparently already destroyed 2 Hamas observation posts in southern Gaza. These strikes come at the culmination of the Palestinian March of Return protest, in which tens of thousands of Palestinians have stormed the Gaza border, all to demand they be allowed to return to what is now Israel. Thousands have been injured and 60 Palestinians have been killed in the clashes, but the IDF is defending its right to defend itself against violent protesters. Well, the last few days have seen much bloodshed on the Gaza-Israeli border following clashes between Palestinian demonstrators and the IDF. As the Palestinian March of Return protest continues, 62 Palestinians have reportedly been killed in the clashes, and according to Hamas, 53 of them were actually members of the terror group. The IDF is claiming that this is proof that Israel is specifically targeting violent protesters and that Hamas is behind the riots. Israel hasn't released its own official death toll, but officials have questioned the accuracy of the number provided by Hamas's Gazan health ministry. Israel's continued to claim that most of the people killed either belong to Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. According to the IDF, among the dead are 8 members of a cell of armed Hamas operatives who were shot down in a gun battle as they sought to breach the Gaza border fence. Israel is blaming Hamas for the deadly violence, saying the terror group is encouraging violence under the cover of so-called peaceful protests. For Hamas, the March of Return protest is a culmination of a weeks-long campaign to try to break Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip. Israel claims the blockade is necessary to prevent the terror group from getting its hands on weaponry and attacking Israelis. The international community is accusing Israel of abusing lethal force to deal with the protesters, but Israeli officials say they're doing what they
need to do to protect the Israeli people. For now, Hamas says the protests will continue in a weekly format, but that they have now reached a deal with Egypt to stop the riots from escalating. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar says Hamas has told Egypt that it's committed to preventing the riots from evolving into a military clash, but that it doesn't mean that Hamas will stop using armed resistance.
Seems like Turkish President Erdogan isn't the only one reprimanding Israeli diplomats this week. Belgium and Luxembourg have also summoned their Israeli ambassadors, Simona Frankel, over continued allegations of excessive force along the Gaza border. Now, the two European nations have called for independent investigations to begin. And here with more is Davide Hermelin, the president of the International Center for Public Diplomacy in Israel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You know, first off, though an investigation has been called for, no investigation results have been published yet. Yet, you know, the Prime Minister of Belgium is already saying that Israel should be punished. Why are these leaders so eager to judge Israel?
We can talk about the interests of the Europeans in the Middle East, and we can talk about old school or the modern phase of the old school anti-Semitism. But I do think that in our time, Europe is facing two main challenges. First of all, the aspirations of the Russian government toward Eastern Europe, which is now part of the European Union. And the second issue is the coming back of many terrorists of Islamic movements from the wars in the Middle East back to Europe with their European passports. All of this, together with the challenges of the so-called regular immigration, creates for Europe big challenge, and the solution is by the involvement of the Turkish government, because Turkey is part of NATO, so this is one front versus a potential threat of Russia, and also Turkey is the gate to Europe from the Middle East.
Right.
This is why I believe that many times now, beside all the well-known reasons, why European governments would like to satisfy Turkey. And since we saw very extremist reaction by the Turkish leader, Mr. Erdogan, now the European governments would like to make him happy.
But what about the violence that we're seeing on the border here? Obviously, dozens have been killed and thousands have been injured. Israel is facing violent protest. What is Israel supposed to do in this situation to satisfy the international community?
Nothing. The mission of the IDF is to protect the citizens of Israel and its borders. If someone would like just to commit a suicide, he would run toward the Egyptian fence. But if someone would like to kill Jews, he would run to the Israeli side of the fence. This is why I believe that anyone who brings anyone else to the border, and this is now border, this is not ceasefire line, since the disengagement many years ago, this is not the responsibility of Israel, and any other European country would behave much, I would say, even in a more tougher way.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us and giving us your insight on this issue.
Thank you so much.
Well, the U.S.-led sanctions against Iran have already resumed, but now they're being kicked into high gear. The United States and 6 Arab Gulf states have now announced an injunction against the Iranian-funded terror group Hezbollah and are freezing Hezbollah's assets and blocking it from access to their global financial network. Joining me now in the studio with the story is ILTV's Aaron Poor. So to start us off, Aaron, what exactly is the target of these sanctions?
Well, so as you said, according to U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, these latest sanctions are just part of a greater effort to attack the, quote, totality of Iran's malign activities and regionally destabilizing behavior, including that of Hezbollah. So this is just the latest in a series of sanctions ultimately targeting Iran. For example, just last week, the U.S. already started pressuring the financial network that Iran's central bank uses to move hundreds of millions of dollars to Hezbollah through banks in Iraq. And this latest move is aimed specifically against both members of Hezbollah's Shura Council, which includes the group's leader Hassan Nasrallah, and against, of course, specific people and firms doing business with the terror group.
And tell us about these other 6 countries. What do they have to gain from this?
Well, the collaboration is between the United States and the TFTC, or the Terrorist Financing and Targeting Center. And that includes Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and the UAE. As for their motivations, aside from the fact that Iran funds proxy wars and terror groups across the entire region, Mnuchin commented that by targeting Hezbollah's Shura Council, it shows that our nations collectively reject the false distinction between a so-called political wing and Hezbollah's global terrorist plotting. Also, the TFTC has already shown in the past exactly how committed it is in general to ending terrorism. Last October, they imposed sanctions against ISIS and al-Qaeda members in Yemen.
Well, I know that this move comes just a week after Hezbollah gained power in Lebanon's parliament, following the country's first election in nearly a decade. So hopefully the ripple effect will be as intended. We will continue following this story. And Aaron, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Well, a pair of Israeli journalists have been attacked in Turkey. This comes amid the sharp deterioration of ties between Turkey and Israel over the clashes on the Gaza border and, of course, the opening of the new U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. The two reporters from Hadashot TV claim they were pushed and hit by a group of Turks as they were attempting to film a story on the street.
Palestinian affairs correspondent Ohad Hemo says he and his cameraman Oded Bino were reporting from Istanbul's Taksim Square when they were attacked. Apparently, a group of Turks recognized their Hebrew and began calling the two murderers before they started to physically accost them. Neither required medical treatment, but the cameraman is apparently in a lot of pain after being repeatedly hit. The Israeli journalists have filed a complaint with Turkish police, who they say have really tried to track down the attackers. Relations between Turkey and Israel have been deteriorating yet again since Monday, after Turkey expelled the Israeli ambassador in Ankara in retaliation for the clashes taking place between Israel and Palestinian protesters on the Gaza border. Israel was and still is outraged, especially after how the Israeli ambassador was treated on his way out of Turkey.
This morning, the ambassador of Israel was publicly humiliated in the airport of Istanbul. He was subject to a security check which was absolutely unnecessary. And all of this was done in presence of cameras in order to humiliate him. The images of our ambassador being subjected to an unnecessary security check are spread all over Turkey. This is something that we cannot accept. This is something which is totally contrary to diplomatic relations between countries. And the public humiliation of an ambassador is something that Israel will not accept under any circumstance.
Israel has responded by also dressing down senior Turkish envoy to Israel, Umut Deniz. Turkish President Erdogan is accusing Israel of committing a genocide against the Palestinian people, but the Israeli Prime Minister is hitting back. A man whose hands are stained with the blood of countless Kurdish citizens in Turkey and Syria is the last to preach to us about military ethics. The Israeli government continues to defend its right to defend itself on the Gaza border against violent protests.
Well, a video is going viral in Argentina of a high school history teacher justifying the hatred of Jews and the ideology of Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. Let's take a quick look at this shocking video.
Los judíos ya de por sí siempre en Europa, ¿sí? Desde la Edad Media, fueron discriminados, ¿sí? Fueron mal vistos. ¿Por qué? Primero porque el judío siempre se encerró, ¿no es cierto?, en sus propios barrios, no se mezclaba con otra gente, siempre fue muy un reservado, ¿sí? Y otra de las cosas es que los judíos siempre se dedicaron al tema del manejo de la plata, siempre se dedicaron a las finanzas, siempre se dedicaron a ser prestamistas. Y muchas veces se aprovechaban de esto, prestaban plata, se aprovechaban de la gente que necesitaba plata y después los perseguían, ¿no es cierto?, para que le devuelvan la plata, siempre con intereses. Y todo esto generó un cierto odio, ¿sí?, hacia el judío.
Joining us now is ILTV's Latin American correspondent, Joy Gavijon. Just 2 weeks ago, Joy, we covered how Argentina has just sentenced a gang of neo-Nazis to jail for the first time in history. This was a huge deal because anti-Semitism is an ongoing issue in Latin America in general, and you'd think this would have an impact on the narrative on the ground, but clearly that's not what we're seeing. What is going on here?
Well, in this video, we can see a history teacher called Denise Equibos teaching a class at a school in Buenos Aires. Now, she has been now let go from both of her teaching jobs as part of a decision that was made in coordination with the Education Ministry.
What was her response to being let go? Because she seems to clearly think she didn't do anything wrong here.
You're right. She actually stood by her position, claiming she was just teaching facts. And actually, if you look at some of the comments on the video, which are quite boring, by the way, there are so many people who also claim she didn't do anything wrong and that Hitler wasn't that bad.
But she clearly has some personal history with Nazism, right?
We don't know much about her background, but if you take a look at these pictures taken from her Facebook, she can be seen posing with a Nazi flag on the back and even making a Nazi salute. So this person clearly has an ideology that she's trying to imprint on her students.
I mean, that line that people hated Jews because they've always lived in isolation and managed finances, it's absurd. Also, she had a lot of compliments for Hitler in the video. We didn't see that part, obviously. Essentially saying that he was demonized, but that he actually did a lot of positive things for the German economy.
Yes, her entire lesson sounds like a way to minimize the Holocaust, highlighting Hitler's contribution to Germany. But as absurd as this may sound, again, she believes that she was just teaching facts, when this is clearly a way to justify the hatred towards Jewish people, something that is still very, very real in Latin America today.
Yeah, well, my question is, are there any legal implications to her spreading this kind of ideology, especially, in an education setting?
Yeah, so far there have been no legal charges brought against the teacher, but Argentina's National Institution Against Discrimination claims they are going to go further investigate her.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Thanks for the update, Joy.
Sure.
The Malé School of Television, Film and the Arts in Jerusalem is the only film school on earth that's devoted to exploring the point where modern life and Judaism meet. And dozens of projects that have come out of the school have actually won international film festivals worldwide. Well, in honor of Israel's 70th birthday, the Malé School has just released 70 of its greatest short films for free viewing online. And here with more is the director of the Malé School of TV, Film and the Arts, Netta Ariel. Thanks for joining us, Netta.
Hi, thank you.
All right, so let's start with Malé in general. Tell us a little bit about the school.
Okay, so Malé is a film school located in the center of Jerusalem, just between the old city and the new city. Students come with a big dream to become filmmakers. They study for 4 years. And they are also producing films, documentary films and short dramas. And because most of the students have a kind of a Jewish background and they are dealing in their movies with kind of topics like Jewish identity, Israeli topics, all kind of Israeli stories, they become very popular in a lot of organizations and congregations all over the world.
Can you tell us about some of the special movies that have, or films that have stood out that were created by students in the school?
There are hundreds of movies, and it's talk about ultra-Orthodox and about Arabs and Israelis, the conflict, about settlers, Jerusalem stories, love stories. Most of them are very young people, so they deal with it. And a lot of them got a lot of awards and film festivals.
Well, I'd like to talk about this special promotion that the school is doing. You just made 70 films free for viewing. How did you pick the list, and where can we see them? Okay, so we picked them because it's the most popular, the cult movies that the audience likes to watch, and they got a lot of awards and was screening in a lot of places. And you can go to the website of the school, and in the website there is a link to YouTube, and you can go there. All of them are with English subtitles because most of them are in Hebrew, but you can read the subtitles there. All right, when you go to YouTube, you want to also search for Movies for the Nation, Malé School of Film.
Malé, yes, 70 movies for Malé, yes.
Malé School of Film.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this. All right, well, this may be the medical breakthrough the world has been praying for. Israeli researchers say they've just created an incredible new molecule to combat cancer. The team claims it can stop the growth of cancer cells dead in their tracks. But not only that, it can even reprogram those cells into harmless, non-cancerous ones.
This would be an incredible game-changing breakthrough. The molecule, known as siRNA, has already been tested successfully on brain, lung, and breast cancer models in mice here in Israel. Researchers at the Ben Gurion University say they cracked this after isolating a specific protein, the VDAC1, which is overly abundant in cancerous cells and tumors. They developed a molecule that forces a body to slow down its processing of the protein. The results were simply astounding. Tumors in mice actually began shrinking, and cells began reverting to their original normal state. The treatment seems to have no apparent side effects when exposed to healthy cells, and best of all, it apparently attacks the root of all kinds of cancer cells, meaning this could be an entirely new model for fighting cancer in all its deadly forms. The Israeli team will soon publish a complete study on their findings in an effort to bring this treatment to the next level. There's still more work to go, but at this rate, there may be a real reason to feel hopeful.
Now get this, a major new discovery in Israel has just revealed that humans have been working with donkeys for at least 4,600 years. Now, it looks like the work relationship between man and mammal is a lot older than we ever thought. So how did archaeologists figure this out? Well, back in 2008, they uncovered the full skeleton of a 4-year-old female donkey during excavations at Tel Aviv, the site of the biblical Gaza that's between Jerusalem and Ashkelon. The donkey was uncovered under the walls of an early Bronze Age dwelling and was thought to have been used as a way to appease the gods ahead of the reconstruction of a middle-class neighborhood. Egyptian Old Kingdom historical texts actually record caravans of donkeys carrying goods to Egypt, so historians already knew donkeys had been in the region for at least 4,000 years. But after doing a dental analysis of the donkey's teeth, they found evidence that a bridle bit had been used about 600 years earlier than commonly thought. In fact, the discovery means that donkeys predate the arrival of horses to the region. Historians are, of course, very excited about the finding because it demonstrates how early domestic donkeys were controlled and adds substantially to the world's knowledge about the history of the donkey. So the next time you go to a farm, be respectful to the donkeys you meet. They've been helping serve the Holy Land for thousands of years. And up now, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh with the top 5 of the week.
The city of Tel Aviv is unbelievably rich in culture, with great galleries, museums, and most exciting of all, events that constantly revamp the city. So I'm here to give you guys the secret Tel Aviv-inspired top 5 cultural events to look forward to. First on our list is the Dragon Boat Festival, usually held in the month of May. This is a China-style celebration with dragon-disguised boats and Chinese music. Held at the Parc Ayalcon, anyone and everyone can come participate. Just grab a paddle, hop on, and take part in one of the many rowing contests. Second and most famous on the list is the Tel Aviv Pride Week. Tel Aviv is one of the most gay-friendly cities in the world, so one parade just isn't enough. Get ready for a whole week of colorful and crazy parties, raves, parades, and all-around unforgettable experience. This rainbow-filled week is one you'll regret missing, so get your flight to the city that never sleeps and prepare to have the absolute time of your life. Third up is the TLV Fest, usually held in June and typically coincides with Pride Week. This festival is a celebration of all LGBT films and documentaries from around the world. This unique experience allows you to really learn more about the LGBTQ community in an effort to raise awareness. So if you're already heading to the Holy Land for Pride Week, you won't want to miss this festival. Laila Lavan, or White Night, is one of the biggest events of the year here in Tel Aviv and is one of the 3 nights of year where anyone and everyone can play their music loud into the night. All shops and restaurants are open till the morning and parties go on all night long. The whole city turns into one big party and everyone's roaming the streets till sunrise. Basically another excuse to stay up and explore the streets of Tel Aviv. Last on our list, I have mentioned before but deserves a second look, the Tel Aviv Night Run, a 10-kilometer race for anyone and everyone over the age of 14. What makes this run unique from others is the fact that it's held at night. Runners paint their face, wear neon-colored clothes, and get ready to race. This event brings together the city of Tel Aviv. Whether participating in the race or cheering on the sideline, it's hard to miss the Tel Aviv Night Run. That's all for today's Top 5. Back to you.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. This may sound surprising, but one of my favorite animals is a chamor, which is how you say donkey in Hebrew. Now, people often use the term chamor as an insult in English and also in Hebrew, actually, to indicate a person's lack of intelligence. But chamorim are actually incredibly intelligent animals with excellent memories and tremendous physical strength. Here are some chamor facts for you. Chamorim are capable of remembering a place they've been to or other donkeys they've met for up to 25 years prior. Chamorim are also capable of independent thinking and decision-making to ensure their own safety, unlike horses. And best of all, the chamor is actually originally from desert areas in the Middle East, like Israel. So stop judging chamorim, people. Instead, go to a local farm and pet one. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear and warm with a low of about 76 or 24 degrees Celsius. And then over the weekend, you can expect sunny skies and a sharp rise in temperatures. The high will be around 100 or 38 degrees Celsius, so do not forget your sunscreen. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.